said, son, I have something to say. And what he told me I'll never forget until my dying day. He said, son, you are a bachelor boy, and that's the way to stay. Son, you be a bachelor boy until your dying day. When I was 16, I fell in love with a girl as sweet as can be. But I remember just in time what my daddy said to me. He said, son, you are a bachelor boy, and that's the way to stay. Son.
Victorian Walk is one of our iconic walks that operates in Hasratganj. This walk takes you back into the bygone British era, is starting from pre-1857 till the present day modern India. The highlight of this walk is of course Ram Advani, meeting him at his bookshop if you are lucky, or at least spending some time at his bookshop in Hasratganj. He's the man who has seen Hasratganj evolve from the pre-independence era till today.
In Hasratganj, it's Lucknow's main street, and you might ask, why is it Victorian? What's Victorian about it? We don't even have a statue of Queen Victoria here. But it's an interesting history. Some of you will probably know that after 1857 and the Great Uprising, the British recaptured Lucknow and they demolished a lot of buildings, a huge amount of buildings. They were very worried, obviously, about a further outbreak of an uprising. So they swept away the gates that used to cross Hasratganj, which made it into a very exclusive royal area. These gateways were torn down, so what we see today is an exceptionally wide street. I can't think of many more streets of this width anywhere in India. The reason is that one of the Nawabs, Saadat Ali Khan, was trying to recreate Chowringhee in Calcutta. He'd spent almost 20 years in Calcutta when he was exiled. When he came back to Lucknow as the Nawab, he wanted to recreate what he had seen. So in effect, he is trying to build a European city in the heart of Lucknow. He develops what we call New Lucknow, and this is the area that covers Hasratganj today. And as for Victoria, although she never visited India, she had a huge amount of influence on the kind of buildings that were put up. The British were anxious to administer Awadh, which they'd taken over, on very British lines. So you have things like the law courts, and the District Commissioner's House, and the Post Office, and really everything that has to do with the British establishments, not so much Indian. Hasratganj wasn't, however, just a serious place. Once some of the palaces had been turned into residences, we notice a number of shops are coming up along the street, and these are shops which are very much catering at first to the British market. So we've got milliners' shops, that is, ladies selling hats to British women. Now you can imagine what the British women looked like in their hats. And in fact, their Victorian crinolines parading down Hasratganj. It must have been quite a sight. Obviously, in turn, as things moved on, the shops changed too. So you start to get camera shops. There were photography studios there too, so you could go in and have your portrait taken. And there were shops selling radios. The cinema came up, Mayfair Cinema, which is one of my favourites. It was a perfect gem of an Art Deco cinema. It's a great shame that the interior has been demolished, but you can still see the exterior. And it was not just cinema shows that went on here, it was live performances, dance and entertainment, and even a Wild West live show. So all kinds of things. Up above this was there was a dance hall. There was also the British Council Library, which unfortunately was closed down several years ago. There was Quality Restaurant, and across the road there are a number of dance halls and cafes where the British would come and enjoy themselves. one important aspect, and we often forget about this, is that there are a large number of American soldiers stationed here, and the idea was that they would push into Burma during World War II. There was an air base here and they would take off from here. So we've actually got quite a lot of American influence, which is interesting. We don't often think about Americans in the middle of Lucknow, but they were certainly here. After the war, things changed, the pace of life quickened, so you get perhaps less emphasis on the dance halls, because this tended to be an entertainment for the Anglo-Indians in particular, and also the Britishers. So once they'd gone and the Anglo-Indian community became dispersed, there was really not so much call for dance halls. But it's interesting to learn from old residents of Lucknow that the British soldiers, in fact, were not allowed to come into Hazrat Ganj except if they had a special permit. They could only come up as far as the crossing. The reason for this is the British soldiers, probably like many other soldiers, whenever they got leave, they would want to get drunk. They get uproariously drunk. Beer and wine and spirits were sold quite cheaply, and there would be fights breaking out in Hazrat Ganj between the ordinary British soldiers, the Tommies, and the Indian police, trying to push them back to the cantonments. So it wasn't all sort of peace and quiet. There could be quite riotous. So the idea of the Victorian walk is to create perhaps a walk along Hazrat Ganj, say about 1890, I think I'll pick 1890, that's a good date. You've got the British in full fling, you've got the British women going up and down shopping, a little shopping here, a little shopping there. They're Indian servants with all their goods on their heads, so trailing behind, and they want to stop off for tea. So they go into one of the cafes and they have the traditional English tea, which is cucumber sandwiches. Cucumber sandwiches are the epitome of British tea. They're served everywhere. They really are a symbol of high British culture. And of course Darjeeling tea. So anyone who comes on this walk is going to be highly entertained, not just by the tea, which is the high point of it, but by walking along and trying to recreate something of that atmosphere of Lucknow all those years ago, and talking to some of the elderly shopkeepers. That will give a very good impression of what Lucknow used to be like. I think this is such an innovative idea. It combines all kinds of things. It combines history, social history if you like, and of course the enjoyment of talking to knowledgeable tour guides who are going to lead you, and then sitting down to a good cup of tea at the end. I know you'll enjoy it. And if you want to know more about this walk, you need further information, have a look at the website www.tornosindia.com.
During the war years, I had to choose between bookselling or teaching. I felt I could give a try to bookselling because my maternal grandfather was a bookseller in Rawalpindi. So I went for a short holiday, and during that short visit, I met a number of, I would say, VIPs, who I would have never dreamt of meeting. And they were equally gracious to me because there was a man who wanted to be a bookseller who was a graduate. In those days, graduates never took to bookselling. They took to government service or some other job that they could get. So my going to bookselling is more by accident than a deliberate move. Once I got there, I enjoyed it, not realizing that in 47 the country will be partitioned. Maybe I would have not become a bookseller if I had known this. Before one day, suddenly, a Mr. Larkins, who was the manager of Lawrence and Mayo, meets me at the club and tells me that they're going to leave Lucknow. He said, it's for you now to check up. See my good luck. Whilst he's talking to me, Mr. A.P. Singh, who's the additional district magistrate Lucknow, is sitting in Mohammed Bagh Club. I go to him and he said, come tomorrow morning, I'll see what I can do. Next morning, I took the permission of Mr. Thadani, Mr. Delhi and Guru Thadani. They said, we have no objection. Lawrence and Mayo said, no objection. So he called for, gave us a cup of tea and he dictated just a note in, not in Hindi, it was in English, that the landlord has no objection. And tenants, Lawrence and Mayo are wounding up. Shop is allotted. And that's how I got the shop. During that period, Hazarganj had probably more than 60% shops which were British owned. They did have Indian managers, but they were British owned. And they were not very sure how the land lies, what will happen in 1947. No one seemed to know. The violence did take place, but that's a different story. At that time, people in Hazarganj, or would say these owners, who were mostly either Anglo-Indians or English, were not sure. So they started moving out and they started selling the shop at much lower rate because they weren't sure what will happen. That's where I get an opportunity, and Lawrence and Mayo comes into the picture. They have a headquarters in London. Here's Mr. Larkins. I tell him, how much do you expect? He says, not a penny. You just come, but have that allotted. And that again was a good luck. I occupied the shop. And they said, buy the little furniture that is there, it's all Burma teak. And it was for a song. I took it and started the shop on 15th February. The other people were English, like Anderson. Robert Anderson was his name. He lived this house, which is the electricity board. That was Robert Anderson's house. It was a big bungalow. There was Rufner, Robert Anderson, Murray, A.J. Murray. They were chemists. Valerios, they were confectioners. There were other people like N.L. Roy, the present, it was there. But there was only two movie houses. One was the Prince of Wales and there was the Plaza, which is now South. And they ran only movie, American or English. Arthur Rank was not so popular, but the MGM, Warner Brothers, Universal, Fox were the people, and they used to advertise. And along with that, they would show a little snippets of the British news for the week during the British. And people went to see what, because there was not much of TV and radio. So radio was difficult. You keep on trying channel 18 or 14, never came clear. I remember. It was a way of life. Gunjing, as we call it, was the thing. It was like a status symbol. If you came to Hazarganj, you put on your Sunday best, came there, walked from Allahabad back to the Postmaster General's office, walked back. They would meet there, some of them would go to, and depending on their economic condition, would go to the movies. The clubs were quite active. And the Lucknow club and even the confection hall, they were allowed to sell liquor. Mayfair Ballroom, the Mayfair Quality, which is no more, was a bar. And when the movies, during the intermission, they came to the bar, collected their whiskey or beer, and they were allowed to drink in the hall itself. It was because at the end of the show, when they started walking, the glasses used to break. So the management said, the losses are great. We won't allow you to take glasses. But they could take your drink. And a lot of people did meet, even if they could not go to, or there were a number of Chinese restaurants. So they go to eat there in a cubicle, or, like the present Burma bakery was a Chinese restaurant. Vora's was a Chinese restaurant. There were 2-3 others near Metaram. That Chaudhry Sweet House next to that was a Chinese. They were very popular. But again, and they were very popular shoemakers. And again, it's very strange that soon after 62, 64, when trouble with China, we overnight discarded it. We were not prepared to accept Burma as it was bye-bye. Before that, Chin, Hind, bye-bye. All stopped overnight. It's amazing. It made me realize how strongly we felt about the whole political situation. It was never shown otherwise. But this Chinese trouble, there was feeling we've been stabbed in the back. So this feeling was so strong, and it was a national feeling. It was not confined to one. That again was a very remarkable experience. The very remarkable feature is even now, today, after 70 years, people still think Ganj is a place to go to and to be seen about and show your worth, if I may put it that way. It's a way of life. And my feeling is that this will continue despite many economic and political changes which have taken place in Lucknow.